We started with earthen building here, a 2-day workshop, and the intention or the aim is not just to get a sustainable building, but what we're hoping for is to actually build community in the process of what we're doing. So we're teaching basic skills, but as we're going along, we're also doing activities, kind of team building, some games, and letting the group that we're working with work together through a kind of experiential learning, kind of solving their own problems, finding their own way. So we create an environment in which they're learning these step-by-step skills to build a house, but also they're building community, friendship around them. This is all part of what we mean by earthen building. The steps that we covered in this workshop, this was a 2-day workshop on brick making, and it's the introductory steps. We started by locating some soil, finding the soil type that we need, and we then simply just start digging. We're digging the soil and we mix it with what's called a binder. So rice husk, rice bran, straw, sand. So we mix soil and one of these fillers or binders, and then we mix water into it. And we don't use any equipment except a shovel or a digging hoe. And then we use our feet, so we have lots of activity. The kids from the local school where we're building this school for, the kids came in and joined and were able to mix with their feet and play. Then we take the mud that we've mixed into this mortar kind of mix, and we take that and we put it in a simple frame, press the bricks into the frame, lift it out, and we have adobe bricks, and we let those dry in the sun 5 to 10 days, and then those are ready for building. So that's what the first part of this workshop was, just getting them to learn how to make adobe bricks, learn how to troubleshoot if there's some problem, learn to feel the mix, because we don't give an exact ratio. It depends on the materials, the situation, the climate. So we just finished the 2-day brick making workshop, and the group will go back to their communities. They'll be making bricks. Our aim is for each community to make about 10,000 bricks. The time will depend on how many people they have to do this. Then we'll be back in about a month after they've made the bricks, and we'll work on design. We've started some design work here at this school because we know we'll be building here. And we're not just looking at the design of the building, but we're looking at the environment of the school, the feeling of the community, how they want their school to be. And then we look at how the building fits into the environment and feels with that environment. And then we work on the design of the building. So we'll work on that with this community. And then when we're back in January, we'll do start the second series of the workshop, and this will be to mark out and lay the foundation. Typically we use a cement foundation for security purposes and for water and flooding. And then we move into the fun part of the workshop, which is actually putting the walls up. And this goes quite fast, especially with a big group of people. So the walls will go up. We'll learn how to make a mortar, which is what we lay in between the bricks. And this is the same earthen mixture, just soil, rice husk, and water. And we'll learn how to do framing in windows and framing in doors. And we'll get the walls up to the ceiling level. And then depending on the time, we'll start to either put the roof structure on, or we'll start to do the first layer of plaster to cover over the bricks. And that will end the second workshop. And then the third part of this series of earthen workshops up here, earthen building workshops, is to work on the final coat. So we can call it the final plaster, or the final paint, which is also, we use earth and natural materials for this. So we'll be teaching 2 different kinds of final rendering or finishing, where one of them we use tapioca flour, just a potato that's ground up into a flour, and we mix that with water and local colored clays from around this area. We can get lots of different yellows and reds and sometimes purples and browns. So we'll mix the clays into this tapioca and water. It turns to like a glue, and then we'll paint with this, and that's one of the finishes that we do. And then a second finish that we do, we use a lime plaster rendering, and so we use agricultural lime, and we'll soak it, and then we'll mix that also with a local sand and local clay colors. Sometimes we can use iron oxides, which is a natural kind of mineral that comes in reds and yellows, and we can use that to tint the lime. And they'll learn probably 3 different types of lime plastering, and then they'll learn what's called a lime wash, where we soak the lime down to a very thin wash and we paint it on. And this way, as the building ages, they can come back with a simple lime wash and retouch up the building if it needs it. Very inexpensive, and all local materials for this. We'll work on getting the roof up during this time. And we also like to, during this third part, we like to do sculptures and reliefs on the wall. So we'll get the kids to come in, and we'll get the teachers to do some work where they're, with the straw and the mud, they're designing symbols or shapes that mean something to them and their community, and those will be imprinted in the wall and then painted over. And then the final part would just be working a little bit with them around the environment around the school, so making it a bit more green. We have ideas for doing some gardens, some organic gardens, some projects just to liven up the environment right around the classroom, and then it should be ready to go. In the workshop, we'll teach them lots of different techniques and give them lots of different tools, different styles of earthen building, so they can adapt and adjust for their different situations that they face. The first one that we taught is what we started in this first brick making workshop. This is adobe brick, and the bricks are simple, as we saw, just soil and rice husk, and we just bake them in the sun. There's no oven or anything needed. And following this, we'll teach them how to build with that, how to plaster with that, and they can do their whole building in this way. But we'll give them a second technique, which we call cob, and it's a different technique altogether for building. You can build houses with it, or you can do joining with it. So we use it as a joining tool. And cob is a mixture of soil or mud with sand and long fibers of straw. And we mix those up with our feet, and we form them into big loaves, like a loaf of bread. We call it a cob, and we build with those. We use those for joining. So this is another technique that we use. And sometimes we'll teach what we call wattle and daub, which is where we'll make a bamboo frame, a loose bamboo frame, and then we'll use a cob mixture or the adobe mixture with long fibers of straw, and we'll wrap that through the wattle, the bamboo frame, and then coat it with the plaster. And these walls are much thinner, and they're what we call non-load bearing walls, so they'd be interior walls, whereas the adobe brick walls are load bearing. And so when we build an adobe building, we don't need any wooden posts, we don't need any concrete pillars, we don't need any other supports. We just build the walls straight up, and the roof structure or the second floor can sit right on that base. There's nothing else needed inside. Those are the main techniques that we'll be using. And these buildings have been done all over the world. We've been building with adobe and cob in Southeast Asia now for several years, and we've been doing community centers and schools, personal houses, shops, all kinds of things. The life of these buildings, this kind of earthen building, varies all over the place depending on the climate, but they have very long life if they're taken care of. We've got examples that are over 800 years, cities in northern China that are over 800 years. We've got buildings in Africa that are hundreds and hundreds of years. And this kind of building is suited to any kind of climate. It doesn't just have to be a hot, dry climate. It can be a wet, rainy climate. We just have to adjust the foundations, the way we put the outside rendering on, and the roof structure that we use. We need to just adapt that a bit, and that's what we'll work with them, is how to take these techniques and adapt them to the situation here in Kachin State so they can get the most benefit from it. And that includes in cold areas here, we let the walls heat up with the sun, and we get a kind of passive heating because adobe walls breathe. This kind of natural paint and rendering allows air to pass through the walls, so we can use that to our benefit. And in the cold season, we can naturally heat the building up at night so that it's warm. And in a very hot climate, when it's in the hot season here, the buildings stay quite cool inside because they're breathable. So we'll be working not just with the techniques, but also teaching them some basic design, sustainability design, so they can think how to apply these techniques in their own communities.